Hello, I'm Karena.
And I'm Jamie. Welcome to As Told by ADHD. This podcast is a brainchild of two best friends with ADHD who share a passion for learning and a knack for finding the most fascinating tidbits of knowledge.
Each week, we embark on a wild and hilarious journey of discovery as we dive in head first into topics that pique our curiosity, from dark folklore to bizarre statistics, cultural ceremonies to famous dead people. We're here to entertain, educate, and tickle your funny bone.
And guess what? This week on As Told by ADHD, we're doing famous dead people.
Famous dead people. That's supposed to be a horn.
Oh. I don't know what that was.
Are we going to do a coin flip? Where's your coin, Jamie? Where's your coin? She whips out of the camera. We're on a Zoom call. We're long distance besties.
I'm back.
She's back.
I have a coin. Heads or tails?
Heads. I'm ready. Did you forget? You forgot again. Just show me.
No, okay, you said tower is tails.
Yes.
And you said heads, it's tower. Tails.
So you go first.
I go first!
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so excited.
First.
Listen, this is a tragic story. However, it is the wildest ride I've ever been on. Are you ready?
Ooh, I'm excited. I'm so ready.
Let's go to the Netherlands in Leeuwarden, Netherlands. In 1876,
Ooh.
there was a couple named Adam and Anja Zelle. On August 7th, 1876, this beautiful couple rushed to the hospital and they are having their firstborn child. And they have a beautiful daughter and they name her Margaretha Gertrude Zelle. Now, she ends up being the oldest of four. She has three younger brothers. I think their names are Johannes, Ari, and Cornelius. She was the daughter of a hatter, and her father decided to invest his money into oil, which at this time, oil was getting big. So you know what happened? They got dash money. They became rich as fuck. He ended up spoiling his family, specifically his daughter. She had silk dresses. He bought her a cart that was pulled by goats.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, Netherlands. It's the goats.
The goat pulled cart.
A cart pulled by goats. Gold studded.
And like the school she went to, she kind of stood out because she didn't live in a very wealthy part of the country or part of the city or whatever. And there was a friend from school that went on the record later on and described her as an orchid in a sea of buttercups, which I thought was beautiful. So like she just stood out. Like she was... Also, let's go ahead and go back to her birthday real quick. August 7th. She's a Leo. We love Leos. They love the center of attention.
You want to know what's funny? I also have the zodiac sign for my person as well.
I love that. Well, I didn't have to look it up because that's actually...
I didn't have to either. It was just there. I was just like, oh.
That's actually his birthday. So I was like, oh. Yeah. Anyway, so they're living this lavish lifestyle. She is just the star of the show everywhere she goes. She knows how to like capture a room. But then tragedy strikes. Her father goes bankrupt when she was 13. A year later, her parents divorce. A year after that, her mother dies. So it's tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. The next thing that happens, her father remarries and is like, meh, and decides not to keep her. So she goes and lives with her godfather in a different city. It's called Sneek, Netherlands, which I've never heard of, but sounds pretty cool. Her godfather's name was Mr. Visser, and she was sent to I don't know if it was like a finishing school or if it was like, I don't know exactly what it was, if it was a college or something, because at this point she's like getting close to 18 but not quite 18 yet. And apparently there is either an affair with the headmaster or an alleged affair. So like nobody knows exactly what happened. However, she was expelled from school because of this alleged affair. So that sucks, right? So
that's so sad.
I know. So it gets worse. It gets so much worse. You're gonna have to buckle on up. She was expelled from school, and then she ends up kind of like running away, maybe running away, or maybe she just moved to like get away from like the scandal of it all. And she moves to the Hague, which is a city in the Netherlands as well, and she lives with her uncle. Now,
dang.
She lives there for a little while, and then she sees a newspaper ad for a captain coming back from being stationed, looking for a wife. She answers it, and she's like, you know what? What do I have to lose? He's probably got money. Let's just
Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah.
Isn't that so funny? I saw that. I can't remember where or when I saw that. But guys used to just put in the newspaper like, hey, I'm looking for a wife. And women would, like a man's father most of the time, or a woman's father most of the time would put in an ad for like a man to come marry his daughter.
Right.
Just an ad.
Right. So, and like in the ad, I think it said something about he was looking for an affectionate woman.
That's the way to do it, my guy.
So, Good for you, I guess. So, in early 1895, she ends up answering this ad. And by the summer of 1895, she marries Captain Rudolph MacLeod, which it sounds like cloud, like a cloud in the sky, but it's like Scottish descent. So, it's like Macleod, MacLeod.
Okay.
Yeah. He was an officer in the Dutch Colonial Army, and she was 18, and he was about 20 years older than her.
Ugh.
Your face. You said, yeah.
It just gives me, ugh.
Right.
What's the word the kids use these days? Is it ick?
Yeah. Give me the ick.
Yeah. It gives me the ick.
So they moved around a lot because of the military, mostly in like the East Indies. They predominantly live in Java and Sumatra, which those are like in that area where he was stationed. He was known to be abusive, like severely abusive. He was an alcoholic. He blamed her for his lack of promotion. And in later recovered letters that she wrote to either a family member, or it might have been, because there was a bunch of letters that they ended up recovering later on. I think it was to a cousin of her ex-husband, because like they end up getting divorced later. But she ends up writing to this person and is like, he almost killed me with a butter knife. And she's like, I'm so glad that chair fell over, because it gave her time to escape, to get help. So because he was...
A butter knife?
Yeah, he was trying to kill her with a butter knife. He openly kept a concubine, which in the East Indies at that time was legal. So fun, I guess.
It's legal. It's just like, oh yeah, I'm allowed to.
I know. I literally like put, what the fuck, next to it. In another letter, she ended up writing, sometimes he jumps out at me with red, bloodshot eyes and spits on me. I wanted to be bitten by a snake tonight so I would not have to go back to him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
She would rather have a slow death.
She would.
Oh my gosh.
They end up having their first child, Louise Jean. She's born in 1898. So it's only a couple years after they get married. But she ends up having their first child, and then within the next couple years, he ends up infecting Magritte, which that's her nickname. I forgot to mention that earlier. Her family lovingly called her Magritte. So I'm going to call her Magritte. he ends up infecting Magritte with syphilis. They have a second child. And if you know anything about syphilis, it can easily be transferred. So it was believed that Norman John, who was born in 1897, that was their second child, it was believed that he had syphilis and was being treated with mercury, because that was the treatment at the time, which, if anybody knows anything about mercury, is extremely poisonous. There was a rumor going around, because they were, like, stationed there, that their nanny, who was, like, a local, poisoned the kids, because they both almost died. But it's more likely to be believed that he ended up getting mercury poisoning from the treatments for syphilis, or he just died of syphilis. So she ends up losing a son. She almost loses her daughter.
That's heartbreaking.
And in 1902, she's 26. She's like, you know what? Screw you. I can't do this anymore. She leaves, and she tries to take her daughter with her. However,
I'm nervous. Because I was like, I know that's bad, because if you try to leave your husband back then.
So she's trying to leave him, and he's refusing to pay alimony, and she ends up so impoverished. She can barely take care of herself. So she has a decision to make. She can stay and try to survive as best she can, and try to take care of her child by herself, because Captain McLeod over here isn't going to help anything. Or she can give custody to her ex-husband and go start her life somewhere else, because it's either both of them starve, or she go figure out her life by herself. She makes the impossible decision and leaves her daughter with her husband, or her ex-husband.
He's such a terrible being, though.
Well, it was an impossible decision, because, like, when she said, like, she wrote later on, she was like, we were dying. We were on the street, we were homeless, and we were dying. And, like, that was the only decision I had. But something you need to know about Magritte was she loved attention. And she was like, you know what? I have these huge dreams. Now that, I just have a feeling that I need to go to Paris. So she goes all the way to Paris. She sails to Paris. She is like, you know what? I'm going to spend every last dime I have on fancy clothes. I'm going to look the part. And she walks into this place. It's like this high society thing. Immediately gets everybody's attention. Everybody's like, oh my God, who is that? Oh my God. Because, like, before, she's an orchid in a sea of buttercups. Like, she is, like, she stands out. And she starts to, and this is in 1903, she moves to Paris. So, like, a year after the divorce, or they started the divorce. They end up getting, like, officially divorced, I think, in, like, 1905. Like, that's when the paperwork was finalized. But they started the proceedings in, like, 1902. In 1903, she moves to Paris. She starts looking for jobs, and she finds a job as a circus horse rider. And she's trying her best. She goes under the name Lady McLeod, which her ex-husband did not like this at all, even though that was her legal name, because she had been married. And, like, at this point, she's still technically married because the paperwork hasn't been finalized. She ended up making no money doing this. Like, she made enough to, like, eat and, like, stuff like that, but she didn't make enough to survive long term. And I believe someone in her life was like, you should try dancing. I feel like you would do good dancing. So she's like, okay. And I have a question to pose. And I have this written down. What does a woman have if she's lost everything and currently has nothing to lose? Anything she wants. The world is hers. She could be anything she wants. She has nothing to lose, you know? She has absolutely nothing. And she's like, you know what? I can lie my ass off And it doesn't matter because I've already lost everything.
True.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So she starts dancing, and she realizes at this time that Orientalism is very popular and considered sexy.
What's that?
Orientalism?
Orientalism.
So, like, basically Asians.
Oh. Well, I mean, I thought that was the underlying, but I just wanted to...
Yeah. Yeah, it's a little racist.
I just wanted to ask, because you can't... Yeah, I just want, you know.
So she figures out that Orientalism is very popular and it's very sexy. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to start dancing and do a more exotic type of dance. Also, she's not trained whatsoever. But, like, she's
just going for it.
She has the confidence and stage presence. So the technique doesn't have to be there because everybody's like, wow, there's something about her, you know?
She stands out or whatever.
She ends up changing her stage name. And this is the name that she's known by, famously. Mata Hari. Do you know that name?
It sounds like kind of familiar, but also not at the same time.
If you saw pictures of her, I'm sure you'd know who she was. But Mata Hari is Malay that they, like, in the reports that I found, it means eye of the day. But I Googled it because I was like, is that what it really means? It just means sun, like in the sky, sun, which I guess is the eye of the day, technically. So, Mata Hari. And she ended up dancing this Hindu-inspired dance that she kind of, because she lived in the East Indies for so long, she started picking up, like, parts of their culture, and she started using that to her advantage because she knew that this would get people's attention. Because she's a very smart woman. She was definitely not trained in dance, and there was a lot of reports of her, like, of people having like professional dancers having problems with her dancing and being successful at it.
Because she's a showstopper.
Well, she's a showstopper, but also she's not trained at all. And everybody's like, we've trained for, like, ever. And, like, how are you doing this? You know? She started to claim she was a different ethnicity.
No.
Mm-hmm. Again, a woman who has nothing to lose. She has nothing to lose. My God. She starts claiming to be a different ethnicity. Here are some of the quotes that I found of what she says. So she says, I was born in Java, which was the place that she used to live with her husband, in the midst of tropical vegetation, and since my early childhood, priest initiated me into the deep significance of these dances, which is a form of real religion. That was one quote. The next quote was, I was born in the holy city of Jaffnatam. My father was a highly respected Brahmin, and my mother was a temple dancer who died at the age of 14, giving birth to me. I grew up in the care of temple priests, where they consecrated me to Shiva. It was there that I was introduced to the holy mysteries of love and divine worship. So those were quotes from her that she's claiming to fully be someone she's not. Which, again, like, she has nothing, so what does she have to lose at this point? And, like, people kind of knew she was lying, but nobody cared. Because guess what? She basically invented the striptease. In 1905, she makes a break as a dancer. And she's wearing, like, these sheer clothes and, like, oriental headdresses. And, like, people are, like, obsessed with her. She starts touring all over. She's all over Europe. And she's making bank. At the same time, she's, like, picking up lovers here and there and, like, just living her best life as this, like...
Bro, is she the OG stripper?
No. Well, maybe.
No?
Maybe. I don't know.
Bro.
I think she opened the door, for sure. And in France at the time, like, sexuality...
France is a sexy place. Yeah.
It is.
I mean,
but
it's a sexy place.
But at the time, like... France was very open about sexuality. It was very rarely that you would be shamed for your sexuality there. So she's making it big. She's torn all over. And by 1910, so like 5 years later, others start popping up. Like other shows like her start popping up.
Of course.
So there's people who are like doing the same thing she is, but they're younger. So she starts losing traction, you know? But at this time, she has kind of made her way into start becoming a courtesan, which is like a upper class sex worker who, it's like a sex worker without a pimp. So she's doing all the big money moves by herself.
Okay.
And she's working with extremely wealthy clients, and she is catching the attention of like the most influential men of the day. And by 1914, she was already super successful at this, even though her dancing career has almost come to a halt.
Wow.
So let me tell you the type of men that she was rendezvousing with.
Let's get it.
She was rendezvousing with a superior officer of France who had been stationed in Madrid, the Ministry of War of France, and a Russian officer in the Russian army, Vladimir Maslov. Now, it is recorded that Vladimir was one of her biggest loves. Like, she fell in love with this man. And he was actually like a lot younger than her, like 10 plus years younger than her. But she was planning to marry this man. But her income had started...
I hate the butts.
I know. But her income had started slowing down. And she's like, I need to figure out how to make money. And all the while, she's still, like, sleeping around trying to, like, get money. Like, she's living this lavish lifestyle funded by these super influential men. And she keeps their, like, calling cards, which is, like, business cards of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And all the while, she's, like, allegedly planning to marry this man, but later on, he fully denies it. So we don't really know if it was, like, a one-sided love story or if it was a real love story and he was just trying to protect her or something, or
she hurt him so much, he just wants to forget about it.
Yeah, like, we don't fully know what happens there. So, 1914... Hatamari is in Germany, prepping for a show that she had written. This is one of her first shows in a very long time. She's really excited about it. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to do my best to, like, do this right. And I'm going to make a ton of money and then make a big comeback. Let's put that on pause real quick.
Oh, gosh.
June 1914, which is around the same time Hatamari is in Germany, Austria-Hungary has a Archduke Ferdinand who visits Bosnia. There is an attempted bomb attack on him because at this time he's about to be put into power in Austria-Hungary, and people in Bosnia see him as a threat, right? So they're like, we gotta kill this guy. So there's attempted bomb attack, but the driver speeds off and he's like, hell no, we're gonna get through this. So they end up getting away unharmed. They go to a meeting that they had already had planned, and when they leave, they were supposed to go somewhere else, but the Archduke was like, you know what, I want to go visit the people at the bomb attack. So his driver takes him back there. They turn on this road where one of the conspirators that was part of the bomb attack was just there drinking at a pub, and he runs outside, shoots twice, shoots the Archduke in the neck, and shoots his wife in the stomach. They both die an hour later. World War I starts.
Wow.
Yeah. So World War I starts, and let's go back to Mata Hari. Mata Hari is in Germany at this time. Immediately, everything shuts down. Her show gets canceled. They tell her, you have to leave your furs, you have to leave all your jewelry, and you have to leave. You can't be here because you've lived in France way too long. And just a little, like, backstory of how everything went down as far as like who declared war on who. So once Archduke Franz Ferdinand is murdered, Austria-Hungary seeks help from Germany. Germany agrees, and war is declared on Serbia. Serbia seeks support from Russia, who is their ally. And then in August 1914, Germany declares war on Russia. Russia seeks aid from France. Then Germany declares war on France. Great Britain is like, absolutely not, declares war on Germany. And then Austria ends up declaring war on Russia. And then Serbia declares war on Germany. And then France and Great Britain are like, war on Austria. So everybody's fighting everybody. It's honestly a pissing contest. Everybody's pointing their finger at everybody. I just imagine like the Spider-Man meme, but like instead of pointing,
it's just like you.
Instead of like the like finger pointing, it's guns. It's like just everybody's pointing guns at everybody. Like
or what's that meme? It was somebody covering their eyes and like turning because I think they were trying to point at something, trying to figure out where they're going, but just imagine it with a gun.
Yes.
And covering their eyes and spinning and just shooting.
Yeah. Basically. So, war breaks out. Mata Hari is like, you gotta leave, or they're like, you gotta leave because we can't trust you because you lived in France for way too long. She has to go back to Holland. So she goes and lives in Holland, and she is bored to death because she's been living this super lavish lifestyle. She has been living this like adventurous, exotic fantasy that she's created for herself. But she does have a man in Holland that is funding her lifestyle currently. It's not as lavish as it was, but she's living with him and she's like, oh, I'm so bored, whatever. So after a year of...
There's a world war. I'm bored.
Basically. While she's in Holland, London ends up flagging her name because she was in Germany at the time. And then she left Germany. So they're like, she might be a spy. Let's keep an eye on her.
Oh, no.
At the same time, France does the same thing. They're like, oh, she's been living here forever. And she's been sleeping with these influential men, and she was in Germany when it started. She might be a spy. So they also flag her. And at this point, she has no clue that she's on anybody's radar. She's like, whatever.
No wonder why this man's... I know, right? No wonder why that man was denying. The dude just didn't want to die.
Basically, yeah. So she's just so bored and wants so badly to get out of Holland. And she missed Paris so much. So she ends up in June of 1916 moving back to Paris. And when she gets there, she's like, it doesn't feel like it used to. Like, the war had changed the city dramatically. Everybody, it was just solemn. There wasn't any fun sex parties anymore. There wasn't any...
I believe it.
There was just not as much as it used to be. She kind of felt a little out of place, but she's like, you know what? I'm still happier here, so I'm going to stay here. So there is this man called Georges Ledoux, who was the head of the French counter-espionage department. He had been notified that she was back in the city, and he was like, okay, this is weird, so he had her followed. So she's like under constant surveillance the entire time. And the entire time that she's followed, because like he's like, oh, she's definitely going to meet with some German spies. Like, pretty sure she's a spy. So they have her followed, and there is no record of her ever meeting with any German spy while she's being followed. And she's like under almost constant surveillance. So in late summer of 1916, George, good old George, and Mata Hari meet in the Ministry of War because she's like, you know what, I want to travel. Like, the city doesn't feel like it used to. I want to travel around France a little bit and, like, maybe make a little money, like, sleeping with people. So she wants to plan a trip to Western France, which is close to the front lines of the war currently. And at this time, to travel anywhere near the front lines, you need permission. And so she's meeting with him to get permission. And he starts asking her about her time in Germany. And she's smart. So she's like, you know what? I'm not a German spy, but I can be a French spy, because she's bored. And so she decides to ask for 1 million francs in return for her services as a spy. I did the math. Do you want to know what, like, the math?
Tell me what this hustler did.
Okay, so in 1916, $1 was equal to 5 francs and 85 cents of francs. I don't know what that would be. So she's asking for 1 million francs. And that, at that time, it would be equivalent to about $170,648. Almost, like a roundabout number.
She hustling out there.
Do you want to know in today's money what that would be?
Yes.
In US dollars, because francs don't exist anymore.
Tell me.
Today's money in US dollars, it would be $4,785,843.
I would have taken that money and ran.
Well, she wasn't going to get paid until she was done.
Now she has to work. Oh.
Yeah. So she was like, give me so much money in francs, which is an absurd amount of money. That is insane to ask for that much money. She's like, give me 1 million francs. I just assume she's just so persuasive, because if you assume someone's kind of a spy, why would you be like, yeah, you could be a spy for us? Unless they were, like, so persuasive and so, like, you know what I mean? Which, like, honestly, I could see her being that way because of the fact that everybody describes her as being, like, this, like, light in the dark, or an orchid amongst buttercups, or, like, just literally the person that everyone gravitates towards. So I could see her being super persuasive. So he ends up accepting, and she's like, I got a plan for you. I am going to go to occupied Belgium at the time, and she is planning to steal the movements of the German armies for the French government. And she's like, I have a previous lover who is the Duke of Cumberland, because she had those upper class men at her fingertips. And she's like, I'm going to meet with him. And he also happens to be the Prince of Hanover and the cousin of the German emperor. Wow. So this man has some pull, right? And she's like, I'm going to go to him, spend time with him, and convince him to break away from the German alliance, to join the English. If this was successful, it would cause a German civil war, which would make them extremely weak. And then France could win. So he's like, okay, go ahead and try it. Let's see what happens. She plans to reach Belgium by ship, which, like, the movements are really confusing to me, but maybe it's just, like, how ship routes worked back then. But she started by going to Spain, then Portugal, then Britain, then to Belgium, which makes no sense.
Maybe it's just to throw off things, maybe for certain supplies. Maybe like she had to follow, like, the ship's natural course, and she was just hitching a ride. Maybe.
But anyway, so that makes sense. So she starts using her legal name. Instead of Mata Hari, she goes by Margaretha Zelle. She doesn't get any further than Great Britain. They stop her, and they're like, you're a spy. She's like, what? Turns out she was mistaken for a different German spy, who was Clara Benedicts. And it didn't take them long to figure out that she's actually Mata Hari, who was also flagged as a German spy. And she's like, no. Trust me, I'm a French spy. I am working for Ledoux, and I am being sent to, like, go sleep with some dudes, like, basically. And so they're like, we're going to contact the French government. So they contact the French government, and it freaks Ledoux out. He's like, they flagged her as a German spy too. She must be a German spy. So he brings her back. He's like, absolutely not. I'm not sending you anymore, because if they also think you're a German spy, no, you're a German spy. So he is convinced that she's a German spy. So he brings her back. She stops off in Portugal again, and then back to Spain, where she stays in Madrid for a couple of days, or maybe like a week or two or something. Oh, also, side note, she's traveling with like 10 trunks full of like the most outrageous outfits, the most extravagant like jewelry.
If I were a spy, would I bring everything? Like, I'm just a sex worker. Like, I have to be hot.
Yeah, basically.
Duh.
Basically. And she was posing as like an upper class lady instead of like a sex worker. But she was taking...
Oh, escort.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Escort.
So she was taken to Scotland Yard in her time. Then she goes back through Portugal, back to Spain, stays in Madrid for a little while. While in Madrid, she decides that if she can't go through with her original plan, she's going to try it in Madrid. So she ends up meeting with a German military attaché, which, if you don't know what that is, it is a military expert who is basically like a diplomat in certain places, and they're often like at embassies.
Okay.
So this guy, he ends up meeting with her several times. All of her meetings are being watched, because she's like being watched by like British Secret Services and I think French Secret Services. Like, she's just heavily watched. But she ends up meeting with a couple times, and eventually she's just a little naive, and she writes George back, and she's like, hey, this is what I found out from this guy in Madrid. What else do you need while I'm here? Little did she know that she was staying at the Ritz. Little did she know every worker at the Ritz was a German secret agent. Almost immediately, the German military attaché knew she was a French spy. So he just bolted, you know? Mm-hmm. And she got back to France and was under constant surveillance. Like, they put her in a hotel and was like, you can't leave. And she was constantly watched. There was one report of like that the people watching her wrote saying, oh, she was in the hotel's restaurant and she was sobbing. So she knew how serious this was. She was like, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of this. Like, this is wild, you know? Mm-hmm. And so she's really upset about it, obviously. And February 13th, 1917, Mata Hari is arrested. Dang. Immediately interrogated. She denies everything. She's sent back to her cell, and she's like, but, like, can I have a bath, though? And they're like, no, you can't. You cannot have a bath. So she sits there for, like, ever. She ends up getting interrogated a total of 17 times. And every time they're asking the same thing. She's constantly denying it until the 16th interrogation, where, well, before the 16th interrogation, she starts writing letters to her lovers that she knows has influence in the French government. And she's like, please, like, they are wrong. Please help me. Please get me out of this. Like, I am wrongly accused. I am not a spy. Please. It fell on deaf ears. Nobody wanted to help her.
Wow.
For several reasons. They wanted to save their own asses, too, because, like, they were having extra marital affairs with this woman. Like, a lot of these men were married and, like, super influential and, like, in the public spotlight, and they didn't want this scandal. So they were like, absolutely not. We're not going to help you. Well, they didn't tell her that, but they just didn't help. And the 16th interrogation rolls around, and they're like, we have concrete evidence that you are a German spy. And she's like, what? They claim to have intercepted a telegram in Madrid, and in the telegram, they say that it mentions Mata Hari. This is from the German military attaché. like the telegram. And in the telegram, it seems to refer to her as H21. That is like her code name. Mm-hmm. In the telegram, it says that there's a mountain of evidence that points at H21 being her, such as places that she's visited before, banks that she's used to get money out from the German government, and even her servant's name. And they're like, this is you. We know it's you. You need to admit it. She denies it. And the biggest red flag with this telegram is that the Germans sent this telegram in a code they knew the French had already cracked. What are you thinking?
But I don't know. Is this a setup?
I don't know. Because, like, just think about it. If they knew they already figured this code out, why would they send it?
Exactly. That's why I'm like, is this a setup? Like, it has to, you know? Mm-hmm. She sent out all those letters. They probably sent out something to set her up.
Maybe. Another thing that is a big red flag for this as well, only the French translations currently exist. Where are the originals? I don't know.
Right.
Like, because they came in like a German code, right? Where are they?
Mm-hmm.
Were there even originals? Did the French make this up? I don't know. So, in the last interrogation, June 21st, 1917, she changes her story. Your face.
Her toot changes.
So she says, this is a quote from the interview, or from the interrogation. Today, I'm going to tell you the whole truth. Up till now, I've been too ashamed. So, let's go all the way back to the very beginning of World War I.
Oh my gosh.
She says that she claimed to have met this man, Karl Herbert Kramer, at The Hague, which is the city that was kind of where she was around Holland and stuff. And he was the German consul for Amsterdam. He was also the head of the German Secret Services in Amsterdam. He watched her and saw she was bored to death. And he offered her 20,000 francs if she were to be a German spy in France. She also claims that she had been given the name H21. And in the, later, in 1930, German archives were recovered that explain, or it mentions H21. And in this report, the writer says that H21 is the most intelligent woman that he has ever met.
Wow.
So we know H21 is a woman, mm-hmm. and H21 was a German spy. Mm-hmm. The reports that were recovered also mentioned that H21 was sent to the city of Cologne and the city of Frankfurt in late autumn of 1915, where she was taught how to be a spy. Now, it never mentions her by name. It only refers to H21.
So we still don't 100% know.
I'll get there. So she admits to being paid even more than 20,000 francs from the Germans. July 24th, 1917, her trial begins. It lasted 2 days. The death sentence was unanimous. They end up coming to get her the morning of her execution. And at this time, execution style was firing squad. There were so many conspiracies around her death.
I mean,
because there wasn't any reporters allowed to be there, so people just kind of made stuff up.
That means they did not have enough evidence.
Here are some of the alleged things that happened at the execution. They say she ended up getting on her knees, but she refused to wear a blindfold. They also said that she blew a kiss at the firing squad before they shot. They also said that she didn't die, actually. A Spanish lover rode by on horseback and swept her up to save her and took her away.
Wow.
They also said that she showed up in a fur coat, and as she opened her fur coat, the firing squad was just so taken aback by her beautiful body, they misfired, and she didn't actually die.
Oh my God.
So there's so many conspiracies. Nobody really knows what happened, but I mean, there is a record of her death. We don't know exactly what happened at the death, but we also know that nobody wanted her body.
Really?
Not anyone in France, not her ex-husband, not any of her family, not the German government. Nobody wanted her body.
Wow.
And she ended up going down in history as the worst, best spy. But I feel like there's so many questions left unanswered. Like, was she actually a German spy, or was she a scapegoat? Was she playing double agent? Was she only a French spy? Did she really confess to these crimes because she did them? Or did she confess to just get it over with? Because she knew she was going to die anyway. So, like, just go ahead and confess to something she didn't do just to die because she didn't want to suffer in jail anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the real truth? I don't know. I don't think we ever will.
Bro, how did you even find her?
She's super famous. She's, like, one of the most famous spies in World War I.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, I must be oblivious to history.
If you saw her picture, you'd be like, oh.
I'm looking her up right now.
Yeah. But, like, dude, it was a wild story.
That was a wild story.
Ups and downs. Like, she went from going from the highest high to the lowest low, back to the highest high, to back to the lowest low. Like, she lived such a wild life.
How do you spell her name?
Mata space Hari.
Let's see. No, I do not remember her. Wow.
I don't think she was ever talked about in Mississippi public schools, so I don't think either of us would have heard about her. But, like, she's one of the most famous spies, and nobody knows if she was a spy or not, you know?
Right.
But, like, she got to die the way she lived. A mystery.
A mystery.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it is kind of easy to go off the radar back then.
Yeah.
But the fact that so many different countries were looking for her, and she was just living.
Or was she?
I
don't know. That's the crazy thing.
I mean, either way, she was getting her coin. She was buying her expensive clothes. She was living a lavish lifestyle while being a wanted spy.
Yeah. And
so,
I don't know. I'm leaning more towards her being more of a scapegoat, mainly because...
Oh, yeah, for sure. 100%. Because everything's a mystery.
Well, everything's a mystery. There's not enough evidence to conclusively say that she was a spy, but there also wasn't enough evidence to say she wasn't. So that's... Because, like, there is enough evidence. We know that there is an H-21. We know she's the most intelligent woman that whoever wrote that report has ever met. We know that whoever this was taken to cities in Germany to learn how to be a spy. But we don't know who that is. Like, we don't know if it's her or if she just lied because they said it was her, you know? Yeah. Or maybe they knew... Or it could be the German government setting her up because she was, like, she was trying to spy on them and she made a big mistake at Madrid when she was doing the, like, when she wrote the letter and it got intercepted by German intelligence. Mm-hmm. Like, it could be Germany trying to set her up being like, oh, we have this woman spy and if they find our notes on her, then we can say it's her. Let's send this in... actual code that they know and set her up.
Yeah, I 100% think that was a setup. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because, like, why would they send that in a code?
They have way too many spies to not know that when something's been cracked.
Yeah.
Like, that's where they want their spies to be the most, is in translations and communications.
Right.
So, how did they, like, that's 100% a setup.
Yeah. But she also might have been a spy for both sides, or been a spy for just Germany and was trying to get caught, you know? Like, she was trying to, like, alert Germans of, like, hey, they've intercepted this. I'm sending this dumb letter to him and asking him what he wants without giving too much information, so you know where I'm at without me having to, like, say it. So it could have been a big brain play. Gotcha. You don't know. Like, she could be literally the smartest woman in the world and just had horrible circumstances, or she could have been really dumb. Like,
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Wild.
All right. Well, thank you for that roller coaster.
Yeah. It's just so wild. Like, how did it even, like, happen? Also, I think that it is also really likely for her to be set up because there's so many influential people who, because, like, they ended up keeping all of her letters, all of her calling cards that she kept from sexual encounters, and it was all people who were extremely high in the government. And she had hundreds of those calling cards. And if it were to get out that she was sleeping with all these people, it would have been awful for everybody at the top. So they could have used her.
Yeah, they have to save their own patootie.
Right.
Duh.
Another thing that was said was all the intel that she gave to either side, or that was claimed that she gave to either side, was not help to either side.
Wow.
So
she just had enough information for them to go away for a minute and then come back. And it's like, wait. And she's like, oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? I meant to say this. And then they leave. And then they come back.
Yeah. So that is the story of Matahari, who was in Yellowface. Is that what that's called when you, like, pretend to be Asian and you're not?
Yeah. Let's,
Because, like, I don't know.
Let's stay out of that terminology.
Well, she, like,
because I don't want to get it wrong. I genuinely don't really know what the correct.
I think that's what it is. It's just, it's really scary when somebody has nothing to lose, what they can do.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Anyway.
All right. Well,
I think that my story went on a little too long.
Yes.
So I think the best thing to do here is maybe end this episode here and have a two-parter. Does that sound good?
Yes. All right. You know the deal. Do something nice for yourself. Treat yourself nicely. If you want to sleep in an extra 30 minutes, please do.
Yeah. If you don't have to be anywhere, go ahead.
You know?
If you want to take a nice, long, hot bath, do it.
Take that bath.
Add some bubbles in there. Do a bath bomb. Take some wine.
Watch some Netflix.
If you want to romanticize yourself, throw some rose petals in there. Go ahead.
Treat yourself so good, please.
Yes.
I'm begging you. And we'll see you next week.
Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye. Okay, bye.